All right, this one's going to be just for the hell of it. It's been a long time since I've did any of what I consider the interesting old text, like Critias and Timaeus, you know, Plato and the rest of them. Anyway, I never do go very deep into Plato because people generally just wander around and draw stuff. Oh, it's the basis of law. It's the basis. No, it's not. It's the basis of Greece and stuff. That's only to do with Greece and stuff. All right, that's it. Just like people saying Roman civil, Roman. Nah, that's Rome. This ain't Rome. I know people would like to think so, but it ain't. But anyway, uh, I wanted to do one years ago. I found this place, and I've never got around to verifying the veracity of the information provided, but it is quite fascinating. And it also set me into doing, because it led to Madame Blavatsky. Now, ditch a bunch of the crap that Madame Blavatsky was talking about, but if you focus on what you would call her restructuring of the scientific models and methods, it's kind of interesting. And she does a really brief section on old artifacts. Now, remember, of course, when she was rolling around and when the others were rolling around, they were dealing with stories. They were doing exactly like you. They read a book of a guy that read a book of a guy that read a book and said, hey, over here there was this thing. You should really go check it out. It's a lamp that never goes out, an oil lamp that never goes out. And this is what I was told. So every few generations, somebody goes looking for Atlantis. You're not the first one, okay? The deal is you have chunks of data, giant chunks of data missing between the old world, I guess you call it the middle world, the coming into the Reformation and the, quote, Enlightenment, unquote, that really didn't, so on and so forth. Unless by Enlightenment you mean corporate models, which is what it was. And in that case, it certainly did enlighten you by the torch that Torquemada carried, right? So anyway, here, Master, I'll ring the bell for thee. Like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Master, Master. Actually, that kind of sounds like old Renfield or whoever it was that hung around Dracula. Master, Master. Anyway, so this one's the Lost History of the Pyramids. It's a site that's kind of okay. Damned if I can't find the site. I'll tell you. It's just one that I stumbled across a long time ago. Anyway, I'll read to you what it's about. It's from the Nexus magazine, April-May 2004. And let me open it up right quick. And I'll give you the rundown on it because there's two other deals I wanted to do for you because I'm bored and I just got to go ahead and finish this out because it's like they're not videos by themselves. They're enough to be pieces of videos together. So anyway, you do know that there are some claims that there are subterranean tunnel systems and aquifers underneath the Giza Plateau, correct? And what you would call the Sphinx or the pyramids themselves are simply the top parts of the temples. Okay, now, I know, who was it? Edgar Cayce? Edgar Cayce, yeah. Said something along the lines, well, you'll find a room underneath the paw of the Sphinx. Well, the problem is, let's go about a quarter mile deeper. People say, oh, there's not one right underneath there. We don't see anything. We don't understand. It's irrelevant, okay? I do know that the Egyptians shut down a bunch of stuff and said, dude, there's nothing here. We don't know what you're talking about. All right, I'm just going to read to you what this says. Now, remember, your names have changed on these locations over and over and over and over, okay? So you got to remember that some of these people are talking across each other, and you're looking at centuries and millennia, and it's just not going to jive perfectly. All right, so you get to go be Indiana Jones and figure it out. So a lot of the people try to say it's the, quote, mystery school, unquote, bullshit. All right. They're not going to tell you anything that any of the other corporate religions or corporate mystic schools are going to teach you. They're not going to teach you anything more special. You're not going to clap your hands and fly around, okay? And you're not going to turn gold or lead into gold. You're not. The point is, they're not going to teach you anything other than how to build and run and manage and administrate an effective corporation. That's all this is. But people make this shit into that's all they were holding back. I'll refer you to Runnymede Institute and Mr. Bill, the videos that he did. It's really simple. This game's really simple. And the deal is they got to really complicate it in the dog and the pony for you. So, anyway, I was wanting to do one of these, but let's move along. In the Fayum Oasis District, just a few kilometers outside the boundary of the Memphis Nome, presents a site of unusual interest. It was in that lush, fertile valley that pharaohs, calling themselves the masters of the royal hunts, fished and hunted with the boomerang. Lake Moeris, or Morris, once bordered the Fayum Oasis, and on its shores was the famous labyrinth, described by Herodotus as an endless wonder to me. Okay? The labyrinth contained 1,500 rooms and an equal number of underground chambers that the Greek historian was not permitted to inspect. According to labyrinth priests, the passages were baffling and intricate, designed to provide safety for the numerous scrolls they said were hidden in the subterranean apartments. Now, let's go back to the fall of Alexandria. It was Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria. Remember that even by the time Solon had wandered into Egypt, everybody was screwy on what the hell had happened if you to go with the standard Great Flood scenario. The known world at the time had suffered the Great Flood, okay? The known world, which is about 1/30 of the actual world, okay? But it's enough to have screwed up the histories, and everything kind of started coming apart and etc. And of course, people like Solon go, hey, wait a minute, this is not jiving here. You know, we just didn't show up yesterday. There's got to be more to it. And so he goes and he finds out. Anyway, they're doing the same thing. Okay, the Egyptians at that time were doing the same exact thing as everybody else. We don't know what the fuck's going on. I've always contended that the pyramids were sitting there way before you or the Egyptians ever showed up. And the only evidence I would have for that is Critias and Timaeus and the Egyptians saying to Solon, there's been a ton of falls of man, you're just getting to the newest one. Okay, that you've already forgot. You know, you're trying to piece it together and you're way, way late. Okay? So, anyway, that massive complex particularly impressed Herodotus, and he spoke in awe of the structure. This is what he says. There I saw 12 palaces regularly disposed, which had communication with each other, interspersed with terraces and arranged around 12 halls. It is hard to believe that they are the work of man. The walls are covered with carved figures, and each court is exquisitely built of white marble and surrounded by a colonnade. Near the corner where the labyrinth ends, there is a pyramid, 240 feet in height, with great carved figures of animals on it, and an underground passage by which it can be entered. I was told very credibly that underground chambers and passages connected this pyramid with the pyramids at Memphis. Now, if you'll remember, and you may not, there was some very interesting discoveries. I think Master P, I had talked to him about it, on Croatia. Somebody a long time ago, last year, maybe the year before, sent me a deal on Croatia, and them finally realizing that, like in China, there are pyramids there. The deal is they're only about 5 times the size of the Giza ones, and they are dirt, right? Everybody tried to say, well, the mound builders over here in the North Americas, they were the ones that they were the only ones that did the earthen pyramids. No. According to the Croatian ones, they're following tunnels at that time, from what I understand. They were following the tunnel. Somebody discovered a tunnel, and they started digging, and they started finding some crazy crap that was really old, right? Just old artifacts. And I don't know on the carbon dating, but by now you know not to trust carbon dating fully. The point is, as they were doing the excavations, you know, it was taking a long time because it was just a handful of people, and they were doing it out of their own pocket. I don't know what ever happened to it after that, but it was a mountain, and nobody had realized it was a pyramid, that somebody had used it. Now, I'd put forth the posit that, let me explain something to you. There's only a few things in this world that would suffer a couple hundred years of being underwater, okay? And one of them would be a pyramid. Now, the deal is, as they said, well, this thing is sealed up. Somebody sealed this up with rubble, and every time we move rubble, we'll hit a tunnel, go down to it, find branches in the tunnels, and follow the branches, and those are sealed off. Well, what if you were doing something along the lines of burying your information, knowing that bad times are a-coming? Correct? All right. Let's say, for example, you were having a flood, and the flood wasn't overnight, but it was over the course of a year. And the waters just kept rising because it just kept raining. Okay? All right. 30 straight days of rain is enough to really screw a place up. So can you imagine a whole bunch more than that? Okay, we see it all the time. So let's assume that we're talking at the end of an ice age. I'm serious. Carbon dating's a little screwy, and the archaeological stuff gets a little kooky because they make some serious fact stretching. A lot of presumption, fact stretching. But anyway, the point is, let's just assume for whatever reason there was a mini ice age, and it decided to thaw out, and you have to deal with it. Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. Okay? And especially if you're talking about time capsules. You know, you're going to keep your information, but you just can't let it flood, get flooded out or whatever. Or let's talk a defensive fortress. A pyramid would be a good defensive fortress, in a way. And what you do is you take a mountain and you hollow it out, and then you fill up the passages as you go inside with your food, your water, and everything else. And there you are, right? Layer after layer of rubble for 200 or 300 yards. You begin to see that it can make a difference in a lot of different scenarios. Now, you're either sealing yourself in. That's what I was going to say about a pyramid. You're either sealing yourself in, or you're sealing something else in, or you're sealing something out. Okay, so I'm going to say that it's possible that the pyramids, even at Giza, were designed for something else other than the religious aspects of it. Okay, get over the religious aspects of it. That's not why they were designed, but, hey, whatever. Anyway, so that's at least that part of it, but I'm going to continue with the article. Underground passages connecting the pyramids. The pyramids at Memphis were the pyramids at Giza, for Giza was originally called Memphis. See the reference, Giza, formerly Memphis, on Norden's map from Travels in Egypt and Nubia in 1757 on page 152 of previous chapter. Now remember that other authors are going to be stretching it, right? The names, times, it's just not everything matching up. But let's move along. It's kind of obvious if you said, hey, it's the only place with 3 pyramids sitting there by themselves. They'll go, oh yeah, we don't call that Giza, we call it Memphis. Well, okay, I call it Giza, but we're all on the same page. All right. Now, many ancient writers supported Herodotus' record of underground passages connecting major pyramids, and their evidence casts doubt on the reliability of traditionally presented Egyptian history, which even I will agree with. I've always said that they moved in later. Okay? They just showed up after somebody else had built the stuff, okay? There's no real telling. There's not. There's not enough left of the old history to get you anywhere, except it gives you just enough to hang yourself in a presumption that's just stupid. But anyway, Crantor, about 300 BC, stated that there were certain underground pillars in Egypt that contained a written stone record of prehistory, and they lined access ways connecting the pyramids. All right, well, that's fairly detailed for a guy making up a story. Okay, and the same would go with Herodotus. All right. Now you got to remember, prior to what, the last 100 years or so, Mr. Bill and them could probably verify fairly well, and so could Tenebrouse too, because Tenebrouse does a lot of heavy reading. Prior to the 1900s, they considered everything that the old timers wrote as either a joke or just a story that wasn't to be listened to. Okay, you got to be careful. You have no idea why Pliny, Herodotus, or Pliny, Plato, Herodotus, Aristotle, or any of them. You don't have any idea what the motives are. You can ascribe motives to them, knowing who they worked for and etc. Because I've said before, and I'll say it again, authors in those days had to be guys that were getting paid by a factor. Okay, they were getting paid to publish stuff. So you got to be careful. You don't quite know what's fiction and you don't quite know what's fact. Okay? But anyway, one of these days I'll dig through and do the heavy reading on that. Just for the hell of it, I quit doing this quite some time back because I got into fractal field units because of Madame Blavatsky, and I started doing that right there. But the point was, moving along, in the celebrated study on the mysteries, particularly those of the Egyptians, Chaldeans, and the Assyrians, Iamblichus, a 4th century Syrian representative of the Alexandrian school of mystical and philosophical studies, recorded this information about an entranceway through the body of the Sphinx into the Great Pyramid. And this is what he says. This entrance, obstructed in our day by sands and rubbish, may still be traced between the forelegs of the crouched colossus. It was formerly closed by a bronze gate whose secret spring could be operated only by the Magi. Now, Magi is Persian, not Egyptian. You better be careful on what got changed when. I told you about the musical chairs. Okay? It was guarded by public respect, and a sort of religious fear maintained its inviolability better than armed protection would have done. In the belly of the Sphinx were cut out galleries leading to the subterranean part of the Great Pyramid. These galleries were so artfully crisscrossed along the course to the pyramid that, in setting forth into the passage without a guide throughout this network, one ceasingly and inevitably returned to the starting point. Now, do not confuse the Sphinx that's sitting there with the only Sphinx that would have ever existed. We don't know. But they ascribe a lot to the only Sphinx they have found. Okay? All right. Time is the old master of every empire and every man. It was, in this section it goes into the Sumerian cylinder seals, which you got to throw out, or I'm going to throw out. I mean, I'm not going to fuck with, what's his name? I can't even remember his name no more. The Anunnaki crap. I'm going to set that to the side and just keep going because it goes into something that's more relevant, if you ask me, than any Sumerian stuff. It just depends, though the Sumerian stuff, if it can be verified, would help set the stage on time. Okay, the Sumerian being pretty damn old. All right, now, it moves along. A local 19th century Arab lore maintained that existing under the Sphinx are secret chambers holding treasures or magical objects. That belief was bolstered by the writings of the 1st century Roman historian Pliny, who wrote that deep below the Sphinx is concealed the tomb of a ruler named Harmachis that contains great treasure, and strangely enough, The Sphinx itself was once called the Great Sphinx Harmachis, who mounted guard since the time of the followers of Horus. Okay, all right. So, moving along. The 4th century Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus made additional disclosures about the existence of subterranean vaults that appeared to lead to the interior of the Great Pyramid. Inscriptions, is what he says, inscriptions which the ancients asserted were engraved on the walls of certain underground galleries and passages were constructed deep in the dark interior to preserve ancient wisdom from being lost in the flood. Okay? Now, if that's a solid deal, okay, all right. Well, if you'll notice, the Great Pyramids of Giza, if I remember correctly at one time, I could be wrong, okay, I remembered reading that the so-called air passages or the alignment passages that were supposed to align up with Orion and all this other crap in the top of the pyramids that lead down to the interior from the top to the middle were blocked off, and that you have to assume that they led that way. Well, why would you block off that air passage? Especially if something's in it. Well, you know, a lot of people say it's a burial deal, whatever, though from what I remember, there's never been a mummy discovered in a Great Pyramid. Correct? All right. I could be incorrect on that one as well, but I seem to remember reading about that and going, everybody was puzzled on that one, and modern archaeology just kind of jumps right over it and says, oh, it's burial. Everything's burial because we said so, that's why. Now, that's assuming that their translation from Greek to Egyptian on the Rosetta Stone was even correct. Okay? All right. I went through that with the Manes and the Manichaeans and how screwed up that got because people were assuming on one side and presuming and never going and talking to anybody that was Persian. You know what I mean? Anyway, so just wanted you to know, think on some of these mechanical issues here that cause problems. So a manuscript compiled by an Arab writer named, this is a good name, Al-Talemsani, is preserved in the British Museum, and I'm going to throw in supposedly, and it records the existence of a long square underground passage between the Great Pyramid and the River Nile, with a strange thing blocking the Nile entrance. Okay? All right. So, let's move along. He related the following episode. He's talking about somebody else when he says this. Al-Talemsani. Yes, there you go. He's talking about another guy, and here's what he says. In the days of Ahmed bin Tulun, a party entered the Great Pyramid through the tunnel and found in a side chamber a goblet of glass of rare color and texture. As they were leaving, they missed one of the party, and, upon returning to seek him, he came out to them naked and laughing, said, "Do not follow or seek for me," and then rushed back into the pyramid. His friends perceived that he was enchanted. Okay, I would have said he was Alex Jones. It's Charlie Beach! All right. Upon learning about strange happenings under the pyramid, Ahmed bin Tulun expressed a desire to see the goblet of glass. Okay. During the examination, it was filled with water and weighed, then emptied and reweighed. The historian wrote that it was found to be of the same weight when empty as when full of water. Okay. So if the Chronicle, now this is leaving the story, if the Chronicle is accurate, that lack of additional weight provided indirect evidence of magically extraordinary science at Giza. Okay, could be. All I'm saying is I've heard all these stories and nobody's proven it. All right. Though I will say that because there were experiments, homegrown experiments into the oil lamps that never go out, because of stories from Madame Blavatsky and this here, and who was it, the Rosicrucians and those tombs, that they actually found some very interesting properties of, it's the crap that you can't breathe that they used to put in schools that'll kill you. The insulation, I can't remember it offhand. I'll remember it later, but the point is when you make wicks out of it along with some modified stuff, it can make them burn 3, 5 times as long. 3, 5, 10 times as long. And that's in this day and age, within the last 10 or 15 years. People experiment. But people have always done that since those stories were out. Okay, according to Masoudi, in the 10th century, mechanical statues with amazing capabilities guarded subterranean galleries under the Great Pyramid. Now, remember that automatons at one time, if it was even a puppet with strings, it was considered great magic. So don't worry about mechanical statues. Who in the hell was it? It wasn't Herodotus. It was one of the Romans that used to do the little plays with, somebody will know, Mr. Bill will know this one. It was one of the engineer guys, right? He used to make the plays, or when you go into the temple, I can't remember who designed them, but you put the quarter in the thing. It was the first vending machine. You put the coin into the big giant vase, and it gives you a cup of water, holy water. You got to pay for it. You put it in the deal, and out comes the water. And then they had the full-blown theaters with the little bitty tiny puppets, and it was all spring-driven. So very interesting stuff. Very interesting. Quite fascinating, Anyway, written 1,000 years ago, his description is comparable to the computerized robots shown today in space movies. Not even remotely. What he said was, I'm sure, I've never seen anything like that. It's not a real man, but it's moving around. Well, believe it or not, illusion is a magician's greatest deal. So what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. That's what you think you're seeing. Anyway, and of course, you got to be careful because people prescribe or they add to it their views on, oh my God, it's a computerized robot. No, it's not. Just basic mechanics, the old school automation. Okay. Anyway, Masoudi said, well, it'd be analog programming with springs, gears, etc. Anyway, Masoudi said that the automatons were programmed for intolerance, for they destroyed all except those who by their conduct were worthy of admission. Now, if you'll remember, you might want to set the craziness of Indiana Jones to the side, but the Spanish gold and silver mines out in New Mexico, Arizona, and etc. like that, it's well known if you happen to come across one, you have to be, if you can read the sign for one, it'll tell you what's in there. I'm not saying I ever did any studying into that, but there might be one, well, I ain't going to say. Anyway, the point was, if you're to go into one of the old Spanish mines, the conquistador mines, you have to be damn careful because they set man traps. That's all they're describing here. Really basic, automated man traps. The biggest mouse trap meant for men, okay? So, yeah, they destroyed all except those who by their conduct were worthy. Well, if you step on a tripwire, you're not worthy. Okay, so seriously, don't add to that story in your coconut. Use your head, all right? And remember that people are adding their own shit to it. Anyway, Masoudi contended that written accounts of wisdom and acquirements in the different arts and sciences were hidden deep, that they might remain as records for the benefit of those who could afterwards comprehend them. I will allow that. That's a given that if people know there's a large problem coming down the pike, they're going to bury their shit. They're going to find a way to hide their shit, their sciences and everything else. Okay, that's the way that goes. Secondly, you've got the strong oral tradition that'll keep it going after that. Okay, so anyway, that is phenomenal information, as it is possible that since the times of Masoudi, worthy persons have seen the mysterious underground chambers. No, somebody just told them where they were, and they went and they watched. They went and they looked at it. Okay, not hard. You got permission. Yes, Masoudi confessed, I have seen things that one does not describe for fear of making people doubt one's intelligence, but still I have seen them. All right. The writer continues. In the same century, another writer, Muterdi, I don't know how you say it, gave an account of a bizarre incident in a narrow passage under Giza where a group of people were horrified to see one of the party crushed to death by a stone door that by itself suddenly slid out from the face of the passageway and closed the corridor in front of them. Like I said, you should see the very, very, very simple, yet if you didn't know it was simple, it'd be complex, man traps that the conquistadors designed in the entrance tunnels to the mine shafts to the gold and silver mines. They had very interesting tables, where you have to crawl through the passageway that your weight would tilt and set off the trap or collapse the mine shaft. Okay? There are very specific ways of getting through it. Okay? That is real, believe it or not, but I don't mean where poison darts are shooting out and spikes come and shoot you in the head. No, it's generally something that crushes you, something. You're going to think it's magic if you just said, hey, that door just come out of nowhere. Well, no, you just set off a man trap, you know what I mean? Anyway, moving into this next section, old records confirmed. Herodotus said Egyptian priests recited to him their long-held tradition of the formation of underground apartments by the original developers of Memphis. Now, this kind of connects with Solon and Critias and Timaeus. Okay, so remember that. They're spread out in time, but they're going back and they're checking with the Egyptians, in this case, Herodotus and Solon. Okay. The most ancient inscriptions therefore suggested that there existed some sort of extensive chamber system below the surface of the areas surrounding the Sphinx and pyramids. Now, that's kind of like a given because the deal with the desert is it's always moving, so you know what I mean? Anyway, because there was a time when whoever in the hell that pharaoh was that sat down there and the only thing above the sand was the Sphinx's head. And for a guy that was supposed to have known everything about Egypt because it had got passed down, they said they never knew where it came from. And the story supposedly related to the Pharaoh in his dream is that Sphinx, as he slept next to the Sphinx's head, the Sphinx said to him, I was created by so-and-so. So they think that's where that inscription comes from that's set in front of it. They don't think it's original to the Sphinx. So if you ask me, it's what you call the Egyptians now, which may very well be Persians or not Persians. Okay, it's gotten screwy. It has. It's gotten really screwy. So nobody's quite. You got people doing their own fucking graffiti. Don't think kings and queens don't run around doing their own fucking graffiti. This is mine. Spray painted on there. To make themselves look important. Anyway, those old records were confirmed when the presence of a large cavity was discovered in a seismic survey conducted at the site in 1993, which is contested, if I remember rightly. That detection was publicly acknowledged in a documentary called The Mystery of the Sphinx, screened to an audience of 30 million people on NBC TV later that year. I don't know. It really is irrelevant to me, other than it's interesting. I'll have to ask Master Murad if he knows anything on it. Not that he would care, but hey, dude, I'd go my ass down in there into it's supposed to be a waterway, a labyrinth, and everything else like that. Yeah, buddy. Do the real Indiana Jones, knowing that your ass is going to die if you open up the wrong door because the air's stale and full of spores that'll just rot your face off. You'll be all like, oh my God. And then it'll take another 1,000 years for some motherfucker to figure the whole deal out and come find your rotten ass down there. So, hey, that's the way this works. The existence of chambers under the Sphinx is well known. I don't know about well known. It is supposedly known, okay? Egyptian authorities confirmed another discovery in 1994. Its unearthing was announced in a newspaper report that was carried under the headline, Mystery Tunnel in Sphinx. Okay? All right. Workers repairing the ailing Sphinx have discovered an ancient passage leading deep into the body of the mysterious monument. Now, there's a bunch of them that said it looked as if somebody had just chiseled a hole in his ass. You know what I mean? Like grave robbers or something, You're never for certain what's real and what ain't. You got people trying to say there's aliens under the son of a bitch with super advanced Atlantis technology, and then you've got the archaeologists who are no fucking help either, that ascribe everything to one asshole that they know that wrote a book, that's barely been to Egypt, that swallows the company line for $20 and a pack of smokes. And then hopefully there's one or two of us out here that go, we need to kind of split the balance here and go look. You know what I mean? Way too many presumptions and assumptions on all the sides here. Anyway, the Giza Antiquities chief, Mr. Zahi Hawass, which catches hell from the kook crowd. I know he catches hell. Said there was no dispute the tunnel was very old. However, what is puzzling is who built the passage. And where does it lead? Mr. Hawass said he had no plans to remove the stones blocking the entrance. Don't blame him. It's his fucking Sphinx. He ain't got to. The secret tunnel burrows into the northern side of the Sphinx, about halfway between the Sphinx's outstretched paws and its tail. All right. The popular supposition that the Sphinx is the true portal of the Great Pyramid has survived with surprising tenacity. That belief was substantiated by 100-year-old plans prepared. Now, here you go. You got a problem. I don't know why people do this shit. But listen, 100-year-old plans prepared by Masonic and Rosicrucian initiates who always don't do anything but sit in England and United States and talk about the fucking Sphinx, right? No. So I don't know why people are fascinated with that bullshit. To my knowledge, it's never been verified, and I think, it was one of them websites that went through the Rosicrucian deal and said, man, this does not match at all what the fuck is on the ground, but maybe they got their information third hand, and that's why it turned out the way it is. You know what I mean? It's not verifiable. Showing the Sphinx was the ornament surmounting a hall that communicated with all pyramids by radiating underground passages, which is, from what I understand, of course, we went through Herodotus and everybody else there, and it kind of gives you that impression, okay? But, again, you don't get to say there was a guy in 1980 that read Herodotus, therefore he must be right because Herodotus said so. You're not verifying anything Herodotus said. You're just saying he said so, so I'm going to say so. And I must be right because we said so. Well, what the fuck? That's not a fact. That's not an investigation either. Okay, so those plans were compiled from information originally discovered by the supposed founder of the Order of the Rosicrucians, Christian Rosenkreuz, whatever, who allegedly penetrated a secret chamber beneath the ground and there found a library of books full of secret knowledge. Okay, not realizing that, of course, where would he come by this information except through a book written by Herodotus and everybody else? So, you got to remember, Carney Barker sell really old scams, okay? All right. I'm not saying that's what he did. I'm saying, don't fall for it, unless you're going to go tell Zahi Hawass that you want to dig that son of a bitch up, right? Pay him some money to go dig a hole and go find out the hard way. And since you ain't going to do it, don't worry about it. If what could they possibly hide from you that's under there? They're not going to hide anything from you that you need because you people can't even control your fucking self now. So what exactly is the super hidden information that they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you because I said so. That's why their books are going to be full of just same old bullshit. How to run a fucking society. All right, it might have some interesting sciences that have been lost. It's not going to be new. It's just little to the side. Some interesting venues in biology or zoology or etc. Okay. Anyway, the schematic drawings were produced from information possessed by mystery school archivists. Who is these mystery school archivists? You never get no names with this shit, right? Before sand clearing commenced in 1925 and revealed hidden doors to long-forgotten reception halls, small temples, and other enclosures. Those plans are included in the master plan section at the end of the book, which I could never verify that. I could also never technically verify any of the newspaper articles that are quoted here. All right? They say, well, it appeared in one day, and then that's it. Nobody could ever find it again. So be careful there. The knowledge of the mystery schools was strengthened by a series of remarkable discoveries in 1935 that provided proof of additional passageways and chambers interlacing the area below the pyramids. The Giza complex showed major elements of being a purposely built uniting structure with the Sphinx, Great Pyramid, and the Temple of the Solar Men directly related to each other above and below the ground. Now, some people have said that the entire plateau was built. It is possible, especially with recent discoveries in uniformity in the South Americas with their canals. However, don't take that further than what it is. There's those crazy-ass islands that are built out of stone hexagonal logs. I can't remember them. And, of course, you got Easter Island, which is just retarded, right? Just fucking what in the hell? You know what I mean? Whatever. So you've got some oddities across the world. They're not impossible. They can be done now. Your understanding of engineering does not match your mouth, okay? So, out go the alien deals. There are some interesting stuff in what I would term to be mystery school, but you'd have to ask Amir Murad and the Eastern religion stuff, okay? Some of the stories on that end of it. Okay, then they say chambers detected by ground-penetrating radar. Blurb. Whatever. It just says around the original location of the Black Pyramid, there's a massive system of concrete walls, 7 meter high, covering 8 square kilometers, and they think that was a canal, a very large canal that was filled in later. You know, there's interesting ideas here. Nobody truly knows, but you get the point, right? It could be very possible you'll find out later that, you know, you had the Great Flood. Everybody had to move. They had to move and shake. It dries out. There is the Giza Plateau left over, and everybody forgets. Shit happens. Okay? Pompeii, Hawaii, you know, a lot of this stuff. Okay? And so they forgot what it is that they did. You know what I mean? Or it wiped out a bunch of the inhabitants, and who may have may not been Persian because they were Magi. They got left out of the drill, and in comes the Arabic population who are now Egyptians. The new Egyptians, you get what I mean? It's so screwy that it's... All right. People are presuming way too much. Anyway, the ancient highway that linked the Luxor Temple with Karnak, which is probably very true, the way of Horus across northern Sinai. It's not 3 secret locations. They're there, and you just now rediscovered what somebody else had already built and knew about. Among the mystics are members of Egyptian mystery schools. Tradition explained that the Great Pyramid was great in many ways, despite the fact that it was not entered it was not entered until the year 820. The secret schools of pre-Christian Egypt insisted that the interior layout was well known to them. All right. They constantly claimed that it was not a tomb nor a burial chamber of any kind, except that it did have one chamber for symbolic burial as part of an initiation ritual. Okay? I'm saying there's some screwy stuff here, and everybody wants to make claims, and it's just too vague here. Okay, according to mystical traditions, and Amir Murad will like this, the interior was entered gradually and in various stages via underground passageways. I would imagine it would be symbolic as well as a mix, since it was supposedly a labyrinth at the first part to challenge what's in your coconut. Correct. Different chambers were said to have existed at the end of each phase of progress, with the highest and ultimate initiatory stage represented by the now called King's Chamber. Okay. Little by little, the traditions of the mystery schools were verified by archaeological discoveries. No, they weren't, but hey, thanks for playing. For it was ascertained in 1935 that there was a subterranean connection between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, and that a tunnel connected the Sphinx to the ancient temple located on its southern side, today called the Temple of the Sphinx. All right. As Emil Barraza's massive 11-year sand and seashell clearing project neared completion in 1935, remarkable stories started to emerge about discoveries made during the clearing project. A magazine article written and published in 1935 by Hamilton M. Wright dealt with an extraordinary discovery in the sands of Giza that is today denied. I can't back that up, this claim that's coming. I looked around, I couldn't find it. The article was accompanied by original photographs provided by Dr. Salim Hassan, the leader of the scientific investigative team from the University of Cairo who made the discovery. Let me throw in that they were real bad back in the day about hoaxing. Real fucking bad. It seemed like every English son of a, or every British son of a bitch that had 2 pounds to rub together was hitting his ass over there to be part of the philanthropic bullshit, dragging mummies home that they didn't own and shit. Saying, I found this. This is what it means. You know, it's bullshit. We have discovered a subway used by the ancient Egyptians of 5,000 years ago. It passes beneath the causeway leading between the second pyramid and the Sphinx. It provides a means of passing under the causeway from the Cheops pyramid to the pyramid of Khafre. From this subway, we have unearthed a series of shafts leading down more than 125 feet with roomy courts and side chambers. Could be. All right. Supposedly, well, if you go with the Legend of the Mummy and shit like that, there's kind of slight reference to a city of the dead. You just don't know. Anyway, around the same time, the international news media released further details of the find. Yes, because an international news media never runs propaganda or hoaxes. Never. So they're all hiding it, and when they talk about it, it's must be real, and when it's all bullshit. Anyway, the underground connector complex was originally built between the Great Pyramid and the Temple of Solomon. For the Pyramid of Khafre was a later and superficial structure. The subway and its apartments were excavated out of solid living bedrock, a truly extraordinary feat, which it's not, considering it was built thousands of years ago, and the only reason you'd find that fascinating is because you don't know how to work fucking rock, but the guys that get paid to do it know it pretty well. Alright? Now, there's more to the story of underground chambers of Giza, for media reports describe the unearthing of subterranean passageway between the Temple of Solomon and the Bladder and the Temple of Sphinx in the valley. That passageway had been unearthed a few years before the release and publication of that particular newspaper article. So, anyway, everybody agrees that they got no fucking idea how old the Sphinx or pyramids are. I highlight out that they're reading the damn hieroglyphs right. There is some evidence to lend the credence that a lot of old-timers talked about it and supposedly went underneath it, and there you have it. That's it. If you'll notice, what is the magic? They went under there. They said there's magic science under there. Then they went under there, and they come back out, and they did not have any magic science with them? Okay, that's the stupidest fucking story I've ever heard, right? Here's another one. Around halfway between the Sphinx and Khafre's pyramid were discovered 4 enormous vertical shafts, each around 8 feet square, leading straight down through solid limestone. It is called Campbell's Tomb on the Masonic and Rosicrucian plans, and the shaft complex, said Dr. Salim Hassan, ended in a spacious room in the center of which was another shaft that descended to a roomy court flanked with 7 side chambers. Some of the chambers contained huge sealed sarcophagi of basalt and granite 18 feet high. Now, I cannot remember which one of the pyramids has it in there, but it's easily verifiable. It's the one that's got that damn bull on it. That's the big sarcophagi that they said this just don't make no sense. I don't know why anybody would build one this fucking big, because there's no way you could move it afterwards. I mean, you could, but the deal is it retarded shit, right? Why did you build it? Because I could. That's the answer. Because I paid you to do it, and I don't have to do it myself. Anyway, the discovery went further and found that in one of the 7 rooms there was a third vertical shaft dropping down deeply to a much lower chamber. At the time of its discovery, it was flooded with water that partly covered a solitary white sarcophagus. Now, That chamber was named the Tomb of Osiris and was shown being opened for the first time on a fabricated television documentary in March 1999. I have no idea. I don't care. While originally exploring in this area in 1935, Dr. Salim Hassan said, "We are hoping to find some monuments of importance after clearing out this water. The total depth of these series of shafts is more than 40 meters or more than 125 feet. From what I understand, they've got all that cleared out now, and it's actually it's cordoned off, gated off, so you can't go down there because they're still doing it, and that's some dangerous shit down there. In the course of clearing the southern part of the subway, there was found a very fine head of a statue, which is very expressive in every detail of the face." Okay, according to a separate newspaper report of the time, the statue was an excellent sculpted bust of Queen Nefertiti, described as a beautiful example of that rare type of art inaugurated in the Amenhotep regime. Amenhotep, the heretic. I think it was Amenhotep. I could be wrong. It was not Bubba Hotep. Okay, the whereabouts of that statue today are unknown. All right, it's probably not unknown. Nobody called Salim Hassan and asked. Okay. Oh well, that was in 1935. So anyway, somebody's got it. The report also described other chambers and rooms beneath the sands, all interconnected by secret and ornate passageways. Dr. Salim Hassan revealed that not only are there inner and outer courts, but they also found a room they named the Chapel of Offering that had been cut into a huge rock outcrop between Campbell's tomb and the Great Pyramid. In the center of the chapel are 3 ornate vertical pillars standing in a triangular-shaped layout. Those pillars are highly significant points in this study for this guy tries to say it's recorded in the Bible, and the conclusion is drawn in Ezra, the initiated Torah writer, knew the subterranean layout of passages and chambers at Giza before he wrote the Torah. You just got to be careful, kids. Everybody tries to tie this shit to their stuff, okay? This dude's trying to say he's got a drive for writing this article and quoting these other people. And anyway, that underground design was probably the origin of the triangular-shaped layout around the central altar in the Masonic Lodge. Highly doubtful. Nobody cares. In Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus in the 1st century wrote that Enoch of the Old Testament fame constructed an underground temple consisting of 9 chambers. In a deep vault inside one chamber with 3 vertical columns, he placed a triangular-shaped tablet of gold bearing upon it the absolute name of the deity god. I thought it was a rock, but I can't remember all that. Anyway, the description was similar to the Chapel of Offering, but if you'll notice, they don't match. So, that's that. All right. An anteroom, much like a burial chamber, but undoubtedly a room of initiation and reception, was found higher up, closer to the Great Pyramid, at the upper end of a sloping passage cut deep into the rock, near the Chamber of Offering. In the center of the chamber is a 12-foot-long sarcophagus of white Tura limestone and a collection of fine alabaster vessels. All right, the description of alabaster vessels and the emblematic lotus flower have remarkable parallels with what was found in the temple workshop on the summit of Mount Sinai, Horeb, by Sir William Petrie in 1904. Remember, they're just trying to tie it all together. The one don't necessarily have anything to do with the other. Anyway, there's other stuff, but additional underground rooms, chambers, temples, and hallways were discovered, some with vertical circular stone support columns, and others with wall carvings of delicate figures of goddesses clothed in beautiful apparel. Dr. Salim Hassan's report described other magnificently carved figures and many beautifully colored friezes. Photographs were taken, and one author and researcher who saw them. The researcher was Rosicrucian H. Spencer Lewis. Okay, recorded that he was deeply impressed with the images. It is not known where the rare specimen of art and relics are today, but some were rumored to have been smuggled out of Egypt by private collectors, which was heavily true, you British bastards. All right, so anyway, supposedly this was all published, and the deal is I've not come across it. So, anyway, he goes into official denials and all this shit. In other words, they just can't quite back it up. So, anyway, there you go. I was going to do more, but I'm not going to do it.